Night Shyamalan really came on the scene when he came out with the hit A Sixth Sense, which won all types of awards, now had nominations, and was an all-around, well-received horror movie with an excellent twist. This put him on the map. After that, he had Unbreakable, which is an awesome movie, and then he had Signs, which is what we are here to talk about today.
Morgan!
I often say how I'm a seasonal movie watcher. I love certain movies in the summer, I love certain movies in the winter, I love certain movies in October, and it goes on and on and on and on. And I think it keeps the experience of certain movies fresher, as I only tend to watch them once a year or a couple times around a certain time of the year. An example being this movie.
Isabel, you're going to feel very silly when this turns out to be all just make-believe.
I saw Signs in 2002 with my friends on a summer night. We walked to the movie theater, and I'll never forget being in the audience and the jump scares and the funny moments, and it just really stuck with me since then. And I think a lot of it is nostalgia, and nostalgia is a very dangerous drug, but this is a solid movie. Out of all of M.Nights movies, this one has the most longevity for me as far as rewatches go. You have Mel Gibson, Joaquin Phoenix, Rory Culkin, Abigail Breslin, Cherry Jones, and a whole array of side supporting characters in this small, lower budget, but thriller of the alien invasion. This movie has a great location, Bucks County, Pennsylvania, rural Bucks County, Pennsylvania, outside of the suburbs and the cities. I lived not too far from there for a couple years of my life, so that's another element for this movie when it comes to me personally. The film has a very, how do you put it, isolated feel to it. I mean, it really is all this big event happening in the world is all from the perspective of this family, this small family, which had recently experienced a trauma in the loss of their mother. Throughout the movie, we're sprinkled with clues through Mel Gibson's character of what happened to his wife and why he is the way he is now. He was once a priest, and now he's lost his faith, and this is a common theme throughout the movie. The movie does touch on religion, as I just said. It touches on science fiction, has a horror element to it, and has an all-around unique feel and a motif of fate, right, and destiny.
People break down into two groups. When they experience something lucky, group number one sees it as more than luck, more than coincidence. They see it as a sign, evidence that there is someone up there watching out for them.
If things happen for a reason, or things are just happening randomly. And that's one of the themes that intertwines itself throughout this movie. You have a wonderful score by James Newton Howard.
Let's see.
It's called probing. It's a military procedure. You send out a reconnaissance group, very small, check things out. Not to engage, but to evaluate the situation, evaluate the level of danger.
One thing that I thought was pretty interesting, when I saw this movie in theaters, the opening credits had a very Hitchcockian feel to them. I remember them being corn stalks, almost animated, and just, jumping around the screen, creating the font of the letters of the cast and the opening credits itself. And I remember in the DVD version, or any version I saw after that, it was a totally different opening credits. I think it's the blue screen with the font and the theme behind it. And I always thought that was interesting. When did the credits change from the cinematic theatrical version to the other version? I still can't find them to this day. So back to the movie. We have this intimate story about this family set in this small rural farmhouse and this worldwide event happening of this alien invasion. And Mel Gibson's character is basically dealing with this issue of faith and belief, and he doesn't want to believe this is happening, while the rest of his family are slowly falling into the acceptance and understanding that an alien invasion is occurring. And Mel Gibson's journey from a non-believer to a believer and having to accept that reality really is well done, especially with his acting and his chops.
Nobody move. Voices. Did you hear that? Not English, though. You heard the voices, right, Uncle Merrill?
I heard them, Morgan.
Probably picking up another baby monitor.
And I will say, the interaction between M. Night and Mel Gibson's character, Graham, is so interesting because you have this man who obviously is tormented that he killed this man's wife. They haven't talked, and you have Graham who's dealing with anger towards this, and it takes an alien invasion to bring the two of them together to reconcile this. And, you know, M. Night's not an amazing actor, but he does a really good job here where he explains his regret and he's sorry for what he's done to yours. And Mel Gibson really captures the moment here where he, through his facial expression, goes from anger to frustration almost to, you know what, I accept your apology, I'm ready to move on. And they have this really nice moment.
I'm truly sorry for what I've done to you and yours.
And of course, in M. Night fashion, he says to him,
Don't open my pantry, Father. I found one of them in there and locked him in.
The movie has scary moments, really terrifying moments that have such simplicity to them. We know the leg in the cornfield. We knew the birthday party. We know about the kitchen scene after the cameo with M. Night Shyamalan. And this is Shyamalan at his best. And I think his wheelhouse, as I mentioned before, is really lower budget horror thrillers with, you know, uplifting endings. And I will say most of his movies do have uplifting endings, and that's something I really enjoy about him, especially in his earlier days, in his earlier works. And Signs has it all. All of his films really combine into this movie. You have, you know, his humor, his dryness, and his dialogue has a very unique feel to it. It's almost, it doesn't come across as, I know how some people are put off by it, how it's poorly written, or it's bad acting, but there's a simplicity to his dialogue. And in The Village, we really see that he can write because he elevates it into this heightened language with the villagers' dialect in a modern day that's supposed to be a colonial time. But we'll get into that movie. So back to Signs. Basically, you know, his script is, I don't want to use, if I use the word dry, it will come across as negative, and I don't want to say that, but Mel Gibson's character, especially when he interacts with his brother Merrill, there's a certain dynamic and a certain tone that M. Night really has put a mark on, and the tone kind of just, it never goes too dramatic or too undramatic. It kind of just stays even keeled, even in the most shocking of moments. For example, in the scene where, a very scary scene where Mel Gibson comes in to see his daughter, Graham comes to see his daughter, Bo, and they talk about how she's scared, she thinks about mommy, she needs water, blah, 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 and he looks up and he sees the alien standing on the roof. He assumes it's one of the Wolfington brothers, so Lionel Pritchard and the Wolfington brothers. So he grabs Merrill, and Merrill's more of a badass. He's a younger, you know, kind of rogue type young kid who's working at a gas station. He was a ball player, but he's more of a tougher guy. He's a youthful spirit. And Graham brings him over. He's the more mature brother, and he says, how do we deal with this? So they're going to go outside. They're going to run around. They scared him. Now, in any other script, this would feel like a tonally different scene with them running around. But for some reason, M. Night, in his dialogue and in his tone, even when they go from being quiet brothers, quiet scenes, when it goes from being quiet scenes to this, you know, we're going to run around the house and we're going to scream, it still feels like it fits and it's grounded in his world. It never feels like Graham Hess is being somebody who he's not. He's still reserved, even though he's trying to curse. So there is a nuance in M. Night's writing and in his script that really creates its own world and universe within the story he's telling us.
Want me to curse?
You don't mean it. It's just for show. What?
Well, it won't be convincing. It doesn't sound natural when I curse.
Just make noises then.
Explain noises.
Are you gonna do this or what?
No, I'm not.
All right, you want him stealing something in the house next time? On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Ah! I'm insane with anger! We're gonna beat your ass, bitch!
I know a lot of people that aren't really a fan of this movie, but I know a lot of people that absolutely love this movie. And as I said before, I am one of those. And I think that what I truly love about this movie is, you know, the ending and the climax does work for me. You have these moments throughout the film where you're like, what's happening to his wife? Why is he the way he is? How did she die? And they slowly show those pieces throughout. And it's this nighttime drive, and the cops' sirens are going on, and you know that Graham is coming upon an accident. And slowly, but through these flashbacks in the movie, M. Night reveals to us that his wife was hit head on walking home one night by M. Night Shyamalan's character, and she was stuck basically against this truck, and she was dying, and once they remove the truck, she's going to die. So towards the end of the movie, Mel Gibson comes up to her, Graham, and talks to her, and she gives him these lines. She says, I want Meryl to swing away. Tell the kids, to have fun. I want you to believe, but he lost his faith after his wife died, and he's sitting on the couch with his brother one night while the alien invasion is slowly taking place and slowly unfolding, and he tells him more or less, the speech, some people believe things happen for a reason, people believe things are random, and he tells Meryl what his wife had told him, and he basically admits that it was just her brain wires firing off random nonsense, and there's nobody looking out for us.
And her eyes glazed a bit. And then she said, swing away. You know why she said that? Because the nerve endings in her brain were firing as she died. And some random memory of us at one of your baseball games just popped into her head. There is no one watching out for us, Meryl. We are all on our own.
And for Meryl's character, it's dejecting to see his older brother, who he looks up to, being so faithless and such an unbeliever, as somebody who was a priest. And later on, it comes back to that when they're in the basement fortifying themselves, the entire family, Morgan, Bo, Graham, and Meryl, and Morgan starts to have an asthma attack, and they don't have his medicine, and he's breathing, and you see Graham so angry, cursing God, and shaming God, and renouncing God because this is happening again. And he says it in less words than that, but you could see it on his face. And later on, I think the next morning, Meryl confronts Graham and basically says, "You're my older brother and I look up to you. I don't ever want to see that look on your face ever again." Something like that. Go to the clip.
There's things I can take, and a couple things I can't. One of them I can't take is when my older brother, who's everything I want to be, starts losing faith in things. I saw your eyes last night. I don't want to ever see your eyes like that again. Okay? I'm serious. Okay.
They're in the basement. They make it through the night. The radio says that the aliens, water was their weakness, and they fled. And so be it. They open the door, go upstairs to the first floor. Bo says there's people on the TV dancing. And again, that's a great Shyamalan moment right there. He doesn't need to show the TV of people celebrating. He doesn't need to cut to cities of people celebrating. He has to give us the daughter saying she sees it on the TV. And he's so good at that, especially when it comes to the way he paces his story and the way his shots, his screenplay, and his blocking all emit the same energy. And especially when he's on and he's making a really good movie. You get that in Unbreakable, you get that in The Village, you get that in The Sixth Sense. But even in his later works, a lot of the times they didn't have the impact they did earlier, because I think a lot of the times he's going for the twist, or he's trying to do something different, and he's overly ambitious. And like I said earlier, I think his wheelhouse is more intimate, lower budget thrillers and horror movies. Just do a haunted house movie. Write a cool script about a haunted house movie. We don't even need a twist. It would be awesome. So back to Signs. They're upstairs, they're celebrating, and in a really cool shot, they turn the TV, and one of the wounded aliens is there. And it's CGI, but it does work, and it works with the music that builds up and the whole event that's about to take place. And basically, Graham sees the bat on the wall, remembers that his wife said, "Tell Meryl to swing away." He tells Meryl to swing away, and then, the movie unfolds as we all remember. And it's a really cool ending. It's really beautiful, and it's uplifting, because in the end, Graham's faith does come back. Everything does happen for a reason. and the aliens have left, but the more important story is that his faith has returned and his family can now move on, and we see the flash forward in the winter and the seasons, and he's a priest again, and it's beautiful, especially earlier when Morgan comes back from breathing, because the alien does inject a toxin into his lungs, but the asthma that he has saves him because it blocks off the toxin from getting in. And that's an M. Night, I don't want to say twist, it is kind of a twist, but it's an M. Night ending. But in movies like Old, it doesn't really work, because sometimes I feel like he takes his endings and his twists too far, to the point of, that's too much. And I always thought that with The Visit. The Village. I always thought that with The Village. I thought in The Village there was one too many twists. It would have been cool if the creatures were real and we were in this mythical world. And yeah, it's interesting that it wasn't, but I feel like it was almost subverting our expectations, and I think he does that. For the end of Old, it was a science experiment. It was almost too much explaining, where in Signs it was really a organic unfolding of how the film would end, because it sets it up perfectly and it's not too much. Some people may think it is. I don't. I love the movie. And I'll just end with the cinematography and his shots. M. Night has incredible shots. The way he moves the camera, the way he shows things without showing them. In his prime, in his earlier movies, he really, really did this well. I mean, there's a scene in The Village where Joaquin Phoenix's character goes into the woods and sees one of the creatures, and the camera turns and you only see the edge of its cloak as it turns, and it's just, he invokes a creepiness, and he does this in Signs, like I said, with the cornfield scene, with the noises, the clicking, with the shots of when they're chasing the alien around the house, and Meryl looks up and you don't see the alien jump, you hear it jump, and he turns and you see it run off, and the swing moving.
Are you sure it says Lionel Pritchard?
His shots have a very meaningful purpose to them, and a lot of films don't give that to us anymore, and that's why I always say we need to go back to seeing directors' movies and giving directors the opportunity to make their movies, and not just give us pumped out content that has no creativity or risk taking. For all his faults, M. Night Shyamalan is a talented filmmaker. I think he strives too much sometimes. I think he reaches too far sometimes. I think he needs to trust himself and stick to more intimate movies. And I think he has a lot left in him, because he still is young, and I will always, watch his movies and root for him, because he made one of my favorite films of all time, and that is this one. So if you haven't seen Signs, I totally suggest go seeing it. Watch it on a warm summer night, June, July, and have fun.
Thank you.